Welcome to the Win, Make, Give podcast. Chad Hyams here, finally. Bob Stewart there. Bob, how are you doing, my friend?
I'm doing pretty good. You got to, you're in your new spot there. Is that what that is?
I am in the new spot. Now, you can still see a U-Haul box behind me.
I was harassing you or before anybody, I think before our guest even got here, because it looks pretty like unkempt back there.
It does back there because that's one of the gym walls. My office is also going to be the gym. So gym equipment's going on that wall. Bob, you might see the seat of the tonal. But the inspiration or the Peloton, I'm sorry, over here, the tonal's in the big box. It'll be going up. You'll see it next time we record.
I mean, you might as well be speaking French. Like, what are all these exercise machines? Is that what those are?
Pelotons. Most people know what the Peloton is by now, Bob. The tonal, a few of them have figured out.
Actually, I know the Peloton because Ben always makes the joke about hanging his sweatshirt on the Peloton. Correct. Is that right?
Yes, because he has one that we're going to give away in a raffle. And Bob, the inspirational wall is what I'm looking at. Right. So it's not necessarily featured behind me, as I have some paintings, pictures, some books that I've had for years with me. But we're finally, this is the only room.
Blah, 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 blah. All right, forget about, listen, our guest asked, what she's already taught me something. I don't think she knows it, but she's an expert on Hugo Chavez. And I thought his name was Hugo with an H, but she gave us the proper pronunciation of it. So I'm excited to learn from her because she already taught me something in like the first 5 seconds, which isn't hard, by the way, but.
No, it is not. It's not hard at all, Bob. And maybe one of the reasons, I don't know, maybe in her name, there's a little heritage in there. So she speaks Hugo correctly and knows what that is. Let's welcome to the Win, Make, Give podcast, Laura Camacho. Welcome. Thank you for joining us here today.
Wow, I am so excited to be here. And yes, I do know how to pronounce Hugo Chavez because I speak Spanish, not because of my DNA, but because of my curiosity that's always got me into a lot of trouble.
Your life choices,
yes.
At one point, you lived in Venezuela. Is that right?
10 years. Yeah, 10 years, 3 different times, before, during, and after Chavez. Yes.
Yes. Before, during, and after. You gotta love that.
Yeah.
And where are you? Not that it matters in any way, because you're virtually everywhere. Yet, where are you now? You're not in Venezuela right now.
No, I'm in one of the most amazing places on God's planet. I am
Italy.
No, Charleston, South Carolina.
No, that doesn't even make my list. Sorry.
I like Charleston, South Carolina. It's a really cool city.
It is, but it doesn't make my list. But are you okay with the storms? I don't know when Dave drops this, but not too long ago, Debbie ran over you guys.
That was
nothing.
That was a nothing burger.
Right.
That was a complete nothing burger.
Good.
Nothing.
All right. Glad to hear it, because down here in Florida, it went right around us, and we didn't have to worry about it all. All right, Laura, we've now talked, we've rambled, but nobody knows who Laura actually is. So introduce yourself to the audience, because I'm not going to read some bio.
Yeah, bios can be boring. I don't think mine is, but but just get to it. So I'm an executive communication coach. I work with nerds. I work with extremely intelligent, extremely good-looking people who sometimes feel awkward or feel like they are not good at expressing themselves, which I totally get. And it's so important to know how to talk about what you're doing in a way that makes it interesting, because everybody's ADD, everybody's ADHD, everybody's wondering if their Amazon package has arrived today. And you have to know how to talk. And for people who are just natural chatterboxes, they just chat and keep going and they don't have any problem. But if you're like a hardcore introvert, that's an issue. So I have studied the issue in academia. I was a professor for a while, but then I studied luxury brands to see how they manage that, how that to get you to separate you from like hundreds of dollars for something you can buy for $10 at Walmart, and the neuroscience. So I have, kind of cracked the code with hacks and tools to help people talk about their business, sell the value of what they're doing without sounding like an egomaniac. How about that?
We love hacks and tools, and we're looking forward to sharing them. Bob, I got to tell you, right? Laura mentioned Amazon packages and how everybody's always checking, right? Now that I live where I live, within 3 miles of me, there's actually like an Amazon distribution center. And if I buy something that is more than $25 worth of Amazon, I can get like in 4-hour delivery. Like I can click and they're here before I go to sleep, or they're showing up at 4 a.m. and leaving the package at my door. It is unbelievable how awesome that is. For those of you who only get next day delivery, you don't understand the beauty of an Amazon distribution center.
The last thing my family needs is to live within 4 hours of an Amazon. Like,
can you imagine? I was once talking to a startup and they were in New York, and their whole thing was getting things to people in 20 minutes.
Amazing. So, I can't wait for the drone to just fly over and land something.
I guess so.
Laura, you said a lot of things in your intro. We've learned a lot about you just in the few-minute conversation. I'm on your website right now, speakupwithlaura.com. Folks, you can check it out. We'll plug it a few times because you're going to want to get there. And as I was scrolling, 3 words jumped off the page at me just on your main page in bright red. There they were. It says, communication is visibility.
Mm-hmm. Yes. Mm-hmm. Yes.
Break that down. What does that mean? Communication is visibility, because it's the last thing that we see. We don't see communication. We have communication, but you're telling me communication is visibility.
It's visibility, and it's even like more profound than that, because its visibility happens when something makes you feel something. That's what I learned from the luxury brands. Like, why does somebody pay? Like, my dad is 90 years old and he's driving some kind of super fancy, like near $100,000 car that he can barely get out of and get into, right? That was not a practical choice, but that car made him feel something. And so he bought it. And then if you want to be remembered, if you want to stand out from a sea of sameness, whether you're, got a hardware store or you're a tech shop or you work in corporate or a podcast, like you got to deliver something that makes people feel things. And I call it visibility because in the sense of standing out, you stand out when people feel something, they feel excited, they feel like you're doing something, even if it's selling hardware or, communication coaching services.
I mean, okay. So let's say Chad, what I'm doing right now, I'm thinking back through like all the people that I've been surrounded with in my life, and the ones that, like, one of our very first co-founders at Active Rain was this really smart guy, super awkward. Like, if you went and had lunch with the guy, it was just the most awkward conversation. But I think like
painful can be painful.
Yeah. But he was brilliant. Like, he could have been Bill Gates or something, like, and I think of like his communication just hampered him, at least in our world. And he's gone on, and I'm sure he's probably developed that part of his skill set. I haven't been around him in 20 years now, but okay. How do I get better?
Yeah. How do you get better? Well,
what do I do?
Self-awareness is really the first step, and there's a lot of people. I have a lot of self-awareness. I wish I could just give it away to some people, because some people are kind of deficient in self-awareness. So if there's no self-awareness, there's no progress.
So I have to decide, like, okay, I want to be a better communicator. Essentially,
you have to. You're going to have problems, because no matter how good you are at your craft, you're going to reach a certain level where quality of your product or your service only takes you so far, because we're in America is like the most developed economy ever. If there's big margins in your business, there's going to be competition. And so you've got to be on your game, and not just, the thing is, a lot of people, and myself included, like, here's the thing. For those of us who were good students, which I don't know if that includes you or not, but those of us who were good students.
Includes me. It doesn't include Chad.
Okay. No, but good students, the teacher asks for ABC. You're like, here's my paper, teacher. It's, perfectly done, on time, did a little bit of extra. And the teacher says, Laura, you're amazing. Here's an A, and here's an A, and here's an A. And you just turn in what's expected, what you're asked for. And life is very simple. But when you get out, especially if you own your own business, it does not work that way, right? Maybe for getting a bank loan, but that's about it.
I actually got good grades because I was scared of my mom. If I'm,
I would consider.
I was bored. I just knew how to work the teacher, so I still got good grades, but I wasn't the good student.
Yeah, that's what I learned when I was a teacher, is how people like you work the teacher. And I'm like, I teach this and it's still working on me,
Oh yeah.
because how can you resist this charming, poor, I just love your class so much.
Oh yeah, I sat up front. I was the
Yeah.
one. You said there was going to be a test tomorrow. I want to remind you of it. Right? Teacher was like, "You're the best."
Everybody
I
else
got
is
an
still
F
in
on the
Texas at
test
the back of your head.
but she gave me an A anyway, right? Because I was so helpful. Yeah,
Yeah.
nobody would be surprised to know that I charmed my way through middle school, high school, the year of college before
I'm
I just
a little
dropped
bit
out.
surprised you were an ass kisser. I like that is a little bit
Not an ass
surprising.
kisser, a manipulator. Totally a manipulator. My mom was a
Right.
teacher. I knew how to work teachers,
There
right?
you
So
go. There you go. But if you're just like turning in good work all the time, that's it. That takes you. I mean, I'm not saying do bad work. I mean, I'm just saying that's table stakes, and then you've got to sell it. But people fear that they're going to be obnoxious, or they're going to be annoying, or that they're just quote unquote too salesy, and so they say, "Oh, well, my work will speak for itself." Well,
You hear
guess
that all the
what?
time.
It doesn't.
It
No, it does
doesn't,
not.
right? And that's a great point. That's where communication is visibility. I totally right. My work will speak for itself. No, it won't. Your work will just get done, right? And
Yes.
it's the person who speaks that will then get noticed. And it's the person who's going to go above and beyond, or the person who's going to maybe even not get the job done yet, something else that then gets them noticed. Okay.
They manage perceptions.
Help us learn how to do it, right? You said you have hacks, you have tips, you have tricks, you got your ABCs of influence. Talk to us about that's what I want our
so
audience to
many
walk
things.
away with.
Oh wow, it's just so many things. Where to begin? Well, I came on with this idea that I wanted to share. I guess how something that happened yesterday. A client who had didn't want to make something clear and thought that it should be understood by the other person who owed him some money. It's like, well, you've been underpaying, and didn't really like get to the point. And it made me think of one of my tools is clarity is kindness, folks.
Mm.
Asking for your fair value is not taking advantage. It's just that, like Muhammad Ali said, if you can back it up, it's not bragging. Clarity is kindness. If you are delivering above and beyond, but maybe you're doing things that the client doesn't actually see. Here's another example of underselling. My son was telling, who's an architect, a new architect, extremely introverted, and he was talking. His boss brought him in to a client meeting, one of his first client meetings. And the client would say, "Oh, Lee," his name is Lee, "what have you done?" And Lee was like, "Oh, I just put together these plans, and, like you just pulled it out of the Cracker Jacks box, right? Like, oh, yeah, I just put it together." How does that convey value? Like, you go to school a long time to become an architect. It's a lot of tedium. It's a lot of checks and retakes, but he was just, in the interest of not sounding like bragging, in the interest of not taking up too much time, was not being clear on what all it involves. And it may look, at age 50, I started taking hip hop lessons because I thought, how hard can it be, right? And there was this guy who looked my age, and he was great at it. I found out later he had this like illness that made him look older, and he was actually 22 years old. And guess what? Hip hop is not easy. It may look easy. And that's how it is with everything that we do. It all looks easy. And if you don't, and if you people don't know, then they don't know, hey, it is not easy to deliver this value. And so if you're not being clear, you're really not being kind. You're not letting people know, hey, there's a lot more involved than what meets the eye. Is that a good start? What do you think?
Chad, this makes me, if I was to really boil back, like, our entire organization almost is seated in this idea. Like, the very first software product Ben ever built, right, Rivety, was to create clarity in the real estate transaction. Right? It was this really complicated transaction that the consumer pays 3% for, and most of the value an agent brings is not relayed back to that consumer. There's all this work that happens to get the house ready to go on the market, and then to market it, and then through the negotiation process and the whole closing process. Like, it's a lot of work, and the consumer sees, the tip of that iceberg, right? They see just the things that the agent's letting them know about, essentially, Laura, the things they're communicating back to them, right? There's all this work that's done.
And expertise. Like, how many houses have you looked at so that you right away can tell, this is good, this is not good, this is fixable, this is not fixable. Like, just in an instant. The same with me with my clients. I've talked to so many people. I can diagnose a problem super fast because I've seen patterns. You see patterns. That's why we're experts. But you can't see that by looking at us, that we've got these amazing brains that are trained based on years of experience. So it's
I love that. Clarity is kindness.
Kindness, yes.
Okay, Laura, just between you and me.
Yeah.
Watch for the patterns in Bob so you can identify the problems before the end of the episode. maybe we can fix them.
Not everything is a communication problem.
Oh, God, no, he's great with communication. It's everything else that's the problem.
Yeah. Okay. Well,
you were talking about your son in there, and one of the words you said, which is not a word a lot of people throw into conversation, you made a point to stress he was an introvert.
Yes.
Okay, so what that tells me is when someone uses the word introvert or extrovert, there's more to it.
Oh,
right?
absolutely.
You have lessons about it, or you know things about it, right? Because most people will just, I could talk to the wall, right? Or you'll tell they're an introvert because they're, not wanting to talk to anybody. But you specifically use the word. So what triggered you to use the word introvert, and what does our audience need to hear that you want to share with introverts? Because you brought it up.
Absolutely. Well, Susan Cain, God bless her, she, made it socially acceptable to be introvert in 2008, maybe, with the power of quiet in a world that can't stop talking. And so the introvert brain just works differently. Okay. So, and it's not binary. It's not like, is one way or the other way. It's a spectrum. So imagine a 10, like flaming extrovert. We all know these people. Maybe you are this person that Friday, after working all week with the same people, you're like, let's go to dinner. Let's go to happy hour. Let's go dancing. And the introvert is like, get me out of here. I want to go to a silent retreat until Monday because it's just exhausting. So really the difference is energy. Like it's to be like energetic, charismatic. It takes more energy for an introvert, whereas for an extrovert, that's just like how they operate. And so the one on that scale would be like somebody whose ideal life would be in the cabin with family, very little interaction with the world at large. But it's not that introverts hate people. It's not that we think we're better. It's not that we're snobs. It's not that we're socially awkward. We can be, but it doesn't mean, it just means that we have a natural tendency to economize and not to use 100 words when you could use 10. Because it's just like a natural thing to conserve energy. We conserve words and we just get to the point. And then so we also can make the mistake of thinking, oh, well, what I have to say is not very interesting. I don't want to take up too much time. So that's another aspect of it. It's not introversion per se, but it's something that introverts kind of struggle with sometimes. And introverts need time to process. That's another key differentiator. And in negotiating, especially, we have to prepare better. That's why good students we're good at preparing to overcome the extrovert who. What I learned is that extroverts, they can open their mouth and they don't know what's going to come out, but eventually they land the plane. I thought it was because,
amen.
Yeah. That's a skill. I don't have that skill, but a lot of people do.
Right? Because I've been noticing you have said we when you talk introverts, and right, so you clearly identify.
Oh, yeah.
Is it possible to change?
Yeah, it's a spectrum. So probably in high school I was a 4 and now I'm a 6. And maybe on a good day I'm a 7 or maybe a 7.5 when, the planets are aligned. But I enjoy a party, I enjoy socializing, I enjoy talking to people, but I also enjoy quiet. I can be in the car. I can not without listening to music, without listening to a podcast. I can just like.
What a horrible thing to teach people. That's when you should be listening to the Win Make Your podcast.
Well, of course, but that would be after I had listened to
Okay, there you go.
to the Win Make Give. I mean, what can top that, right?
Laura, you said somebody told me one time, this wasn't that long ago. A lot of times Chad and I will be in front of a crowd of people, and you might ask for feedback or ahas, or does somebody have a question? And somebody told me at one point, like after one of our talks, hey, if you're going to give the audience a chance to ask questions, you should wait. Like, I think the person said like 10 seconds, because introverts in the audience will take a little bit more time to process the question they want to ask. And so you said that, like, introverts take time to process. And I'm one of those, like, any questions? Nope. Okay, moving on, right? Not realizing I was probably stepping on half of the questions that any audience I'd ever be in front of would want to ask potentially.
Right. You have to. So introverts have also been, that's a common scenario. It's not like you're, an outlier. And so, yeah, it does take more time. And an introvert might, if the introvert has a question, it's because they have prepared it like in minute 5 of your talk. That would be me, like, well, I'm going to ask this very good question. But if they haven't done that, then no, they don't think about it. And then when you say, hey, I want to talk to you about this topic, and you just pull them into a room, it just takes us time to like get situated about what is this about and what do I know about it, and that it can also affect our confidence because we haven't prepared. So if you work with introverts, anybody listening, like, know that one of the best tools you have to get more out of your introvert, because that introvert sees things that extroverts don't see. We are more like detail oriented. We just notice more things. That's why it's a secret advantage, really, to be one, because you can build rapport strategically instead of just massively. I forgot what I was going to say about the questions, but yeah, you can get more value from your introvert if you say, hey, I want to talk to you about this topic this afternoon or in an hour, like, heads up. Oh my gosh, you're going to get so many more ideas. Another idea to get more value from your introverts is to make everybody in the room give an idea, and you start with the least senior person and you move up. You can have people like, I want everybody to go to the whiteboard and write down, a potential solution to this. It's like engineering it, structuring it. And of course, after a while, even the most introvert gets like acclimated and can. I guess it's because we get the training and the exposure, and so we're not as surprised. There's one tool, if anybody's listening and is an introvert who fears being asked questions for which you are not prepared, that can throw you off. That throws off a lot of really smart people just because we get brain freeze sometimes. So really incredibly powerful tools, very simple though, is you create a question bank, like in a Google sheet or Excel spreadsheet. Just think, in this meeting with a person, this negotiation, what are the potential questions I could be asked? And then you show that to your boss, to your colleague, to your partner, to your principal. What other questions do you think I can be asked? Because the number of questions you're going to be asked is not 7 million. It's like 20 and maybe even 15. It's going to be about risk. It's going to be about timeline. It's going to be about budget. There's a limited number of topics that you're going to be asked. They're not going to ask you the square root of 570, which you could actually get on your phone.
I'm sorry, I'm like off in space right now because I'm like maybe having a realization for the first time. I think my wife is introverted. Like
Ben is.
Yeah.
Right? I mean, we're led by a guy. He's hugely introverted. Now, it doesn't mean he can't get up on stage in front of thousands and thousands of people.
Absolutely.
It doesn't mean he can't do one of those week-long events where we're surrounded by people. But you can be sure at the end of the event, he's off the grid, right? He's a silent retreat, right? Like Laura said earlier. And he goes into recovery mode because he survived the extroverts that he needed to survive. So don't anybody who's out there who's an introvert listening to this going, yes, don't think you can't be a success because
No,
you answer to a huge introvert. Right?
Exactly. And in fact, we are better often, maybe not in every single case, but often better public speakers because we prepare and we often get more information out, although you have to be careful about information overload because we're not rambling. We're not taking 2,000 words to say what can be said in 25. So,
which explains why when Laura got to the call before I hit start, her question was, what do you want to get out of this? She wanted to be prepared. She wanted to have the questions. And Bob's sitting there going, I don't care. We'll figure this out. Right? He's like, I'm going to work one of these 4 things in on you. And I'm like, don't worry. We're going to make it authentic. Just trust the extroverts. We're going to have some fun.
Oh, exactly. And we need both. I mean, a dinner party of pure introverts. I mean, not
you better
fun.
Have good music playing in the background. So, Bob, I just segued you into it. Give me one. You said there were 4 things. I didn't even know what you were talking about. You said there were 4 things that Laura had done or was going to do or goals or something, and you wanted to work some of these in or something. So ask away, Bob Stewart.
You swam. Okay, so there's you have on your about page, right? 4 scary, uncomfortable goals you've tackled. I get before we talk about any one of these. Was this like purposeful? Did you set out, like some of these seem purposeful? You're like, I joined a Latin choir at my church with 0 musical talent. Like you must have been like, I'm going to do this thing to get outside my comfort zone. But like, so were these purposeful things that you just decided like, I'm going to do something to challenge myself?
Absolutely. I do something to challenge myself all the time. I mean, but I'll tell you 100% of the time, I don't realize how hard it is. And I think that's true with any business, with any endeavor. How hard can it be? Well, it actually can be really hard and take a lot more money and take a lot more time. But each thing was led by probably a curiosity. I mean, just my tombstone's going to say something like curiosity killed her in the end or something because that's what got me to Venezuela, that's what got me swimming, that's what got me in the Latin choir. Was just hearing the chant in a church service. I'm like, wow, that is so beautiful. And then my husband's a musician. He's like, why don't you join the choir? I'm like, how hard can it be? I did take piano lessons when I was young. Well, actually singing when you don't have any natural talent is quite challenging, but it's so good for my brain. Oh my gosh, I'm learning all this stuff, and it's a totally different part of my brain that I've ever used before in my life, and I love it.
So, okay, can we talk about open water swimming under the bridge? Why?
Well,
did you see somebody swim? Because it's hard. That's what.
Exactly.
Was it like a marathon? So you signed up to do this, or was this just I'm going to go swim?
No, it's an event. It's an event. Okay. It's an event. It's an event, and swimming is my sport because you don't have to talk to anybody when you're swimming. They can't
actually. If you're talking, that's probably not very good at all.
Exactly. I don't think you'd swim for very long while you're talking. So swimming is my sport, and how hard can it be? Let's try it. It's just 2.5 miles. Well, when you're being pulled by the current, is probably 7 miles. But I'm growth mindset.
You swim downstream. What are you talking? You're swimming upstream? That seems
not a whole way, but even when it's not working against you, how do you swim in a straight line in open water? Like I don't even know. So they have these barriers, and so I'm just zigzagging between the barriers, right? I did it multiple times, and I might do it again. They stopped it from COVID, and I got out of training, but you know what? One time, the last thing I saw before I dived into the water was this man unbuckling his prosthetic leg, giving it to somebody, and then diving. I
thought she was going to say a shark fin go by, and I was going to be really impressed.
No. And then another time, the last time I swam, and I'm not a fast swimmer, but anyway, I'm slow and steady. I got to the end, and I'm surrounded by these young men. And I'm like, wow, Laura, you have really gotten better. And then I realized that the young men were in the 5-mile swim that had started an hour earlier. So, I guess I'm very optimistic.
All right.
What else we got on that? Were there anything else on that list, Bob? I didn't check it out. You can always go to
starting a company,
folks.
Starting a company like late in life.
Yeah. Starting a company when you should be, taking care of your kids' college. Well, I was very fortunate. I know that sometimes people have very traumatic childhoods. I had a great childhood. It went south a little bit when my parents divorced, but I had a grandmother who, number one, went to college. This is her college ring. She was born in 1917, widowed at age 28 with 3 kids, put herself through college. And she, in the process of going to college and after college as a teacher, she was working some of these multi-level sales things. And she got to know 2 women named Mary who both started lucrative companies. One was Mary Kay Ash, who started Mary Kay Cosmetics, and the other was Mary Crowley, who started Home Interiors, which she sold for a mere $26 million in the 1980s, when that was actually quite a lot of money. So, from my point of view, I guess that's why.
Did your grandma have a pink Cadillac?
What?
Did grandma get a pink Cadillac from Mary Kay?
Yeah, she did. She did. So my whole upbringing was not, women can't do things. It's like, what are you going to do, Laura? So I'm like, I'm going to be an international businesswoman. With my grandmother, the same lady, I had gotten to fly first class young. And I'm like, yeah, sign me up for this. And so I always wanted to have my own business, and I wanted to be international. And I learned Spanish, and I was a little bit ahead. People would be like, "Why are you studying? Why do we need somebody who speaks Spanish? Like, what is that?" And anyway, so I just decided when I had been working in the university teaching, which is like the opposite of being an entrepreneur, except you are king or queen of your classroom. And I'm like, everybody has trouble communicating. So I'm going to help people communicate better in companies and make so much money I won't know what to do with it, because everywhere you go, people complain about communication.
That's a great, you wrapped us right back around. So clarity is kindness. Give us a couple more hacks here that can help somebody be a better communicator in service of kind of advancing their career or their visibility.
All right. Absolutely. So one thing is, sell it before you tell it. That means if you're in a meeting or if you're speaking up, remember your audience is thinking about their Amazon package. So you need to reel them in and let them know that what you're going to say is important. So for an example, I'm going to tell you about a communication tool that will make people sit up and listen. And that tool is called Sell It Before You Tell It. So see, and that introvert is even, lots of people, you can be programmed to think, oh, I'm just going to say the thing. Well, if it's important, you need to set people up. You need to set it up. You need to on-ramp. You need to let people know why it's important. So sell it before you tell it. Another tool is the rule of 3. If somebody's asking you a random question, you're not sure how to answer it, just say, well, the three things that come to mind are 1, 2, and 3, and you number them because that sounds like you've thought about it and that it's extremely organized. And extroverts actually use that a lot to help them
stop giving
not
away my
ramble.
Tricks. You're giving away my tricks. I sound so much smarter when I say, oh, well, here's the 3, 1, 2, 3. But now they all know that I just need the rule of 3. Damn it.
And this is important because that's another clarity is kindness. Like, people don't know, like, why is it important the way that you carry out your discovery call or the way you have your contract? This is important because this process is important because that is like an attention getter. Oh, he's not just rambling. He's going to say something. This is important because. So that's another tip. And then another great tool is to take what you're going to say and make it into a question, especially if you're needing to give feedback. So instead of saying, Bob, I'm, like, say you're not really happy about Bob's performance in a certain project, and say,
you did figure out his problem. Perfect.
Yeah. So instead of just saying, I really think that you dropped the ball on this, you start off by saying, Bob, how do you see that, this project? How do you think you did? And then maybe Bob would say, well, my mom was in the hospital during this thing and I really wasn't on my A game. That could give you an insight. Or it could be Bob says, I think I nailed it. Like I did amazing. And that lets you know Bob doesn't really understand the standard here. That's useful information to know, right? So get the other person to talk first by asking a question, and then you can customize your comment to that. So ask more questions.
In my defense, Chad was not very clear with what he wanted from me, so I didn't really know what.
Well, that would explain a lot, right?
Always does. Always does. All right, Bob, you've been taking the notes over there. I'm going to put you on the spot. I'm going to be really clear. Okay. Give us those hacks again, Bob. First one was?
Clarity is kindness was the first place we went. Sell it before you tell it, I think was the next spot that we went to. Then we went up to the rule of 3. So I did this all over my page. It's the notes are like all, I think we hit the rule of 3. This is important because as kind of an attention grabber to key people back to you, especially if you're somebody like me who might be meandering through your talk there. I think those.
And the last one Laura gave us was, did you write it down for us right here at the end?
I think I did.
Asking questions.
There you go. Turn it into a question.
I do. I have that at the bottom of my page. Turn it into a question. There it is.
There you go. All right. So folks, before I go to Laura, look, check out her website, speakupwithlaura.com. It's the easiest way. You can find her book there. You can get in touch with her through there. You can find out all the programs and services that she offers there. You can learn more about the 4 scary goals that she went through and she was talking about there. And of course, you can find us always on our Facebook group, Win, Make, Give. You can find us winmakegive.com. You can find us wherever you get podcasts. Just search Win, Make, Give. And please share this episode, especially with an introvert out there who wants to hear it.
Yes.
Now, Laura, before I bring it to the end here, if I could ask you, if you could share one thing, I don't care if it's something you've already said and you want to reiterate it because it was the thing you need to make clear to our audience, or whether there's something we haven't managed to get into conversation on yet, and you're like, this is what came to me. I really wanted to make sure it came out during the podcast somehow. What's that one last thought you want to share?
Now, I'm going to go back to clarity as kindness. Be clear. Don't make part of success, part of the visibility that you get in communication is making it easy for the other person to get your meaning and to do what you want them to do. And how to do that is like make it clear. And here's a little bonus tip to go along with that. Remember, specific is terrific. I want to make a lot of money. Oh, really? How much? How much is a lot? I want a raise. How much? I want a big raise. How big is a big raise? When do you need it? Like specific is terrific, and that will help you with clarity as kindness.
I like that one. See, folks, this is why you don't leave early. All right, let me be clear. Win, Make, Give podcast. We are looking for you to subscribe. Let me be clear. We are looking for a 5-star review from you if you haven't done it before. And let me be clear. We're looking for you to share this episode with someone who you know is going to hear something from Laura and go, oh, I needed to hear that. And I'm going to keep listening to these guys at the Win, Make, Give podcast and see who they bring next. Laura, thank you so much for taking the time to join us today, folks. Speakupwithlaura.com is the best way to get a hold of her. You know where to find Bob and I. Should you ever need us, we are there. Until our next episode, as always, do good.